The Golden State Warriors have once again positioned themselves at the center of an off-season storm, but this time the ripple effect could shake the plans of franchises far beyond the Bay Area. The franchise that has already dominated an entire era with Stephen Curry and Draymond Green is now circling around a player who once carried the weight of being a #1 overall pick, and this move could directly interfere with ambitions of both the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. Last season, Golden State shocked the NBA by pulling off a last-minute deal for Jimmy Butler, placing him next to Curry and Green in a desperate push to extend their dynasty. The experiment was short-lived as Curry went down in Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals against Minnesota, collapsing the Warriors' momentum and opening questions about their long-term ceiling. Yet while many believe this offseason would trigger an aggressive reset for Golden State, the front office instead found itself trapped in negotiations surrounding Jonathan Kuminga's restricted free agency, a stalemate that stalled multiple transactions. Now, with time running short, an unexpected name has surfaced in their crosshairs, and it is none other than Ben Simmons. Once heralded as the next-generational two-way superstar, Simmons' career has been shaped by highs and lows, from Rookie of the Year to multiple All-Star nods, followed by years plagued by back injuries and harsh media scrutiny. Yet the 29-year-old revived his stock with a solid role for the Los Angeles Clippers this past season, showing that he can still alter games defensively, facilitate offense with rare court vision, and most importantly, embrace a role off the bench without ego. According to Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, Simmons is drawing serious consideration from several franchises including the Knicks, Celtics, and Kings. But Siegel hinted at something that immediately raised eyebrows, that the Warriors could step in and hijack the sweepstakes at the last possible moment. If that happens, the implications go far beyond Golden State's bench rotation. For Boston, the situation becomes particularly intriguing. The Celtics have quietly monitored Simmons as a potential depth addition because of his defensive versatility and ability to run secondary units without taking touches away from Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Imagine Simmons anchoring stretches where the starters rest, bringing playmaking for shooters like Peyton Pritchard or Sam Hauser, while also switching defensively on wings and guards. It is a scenario that could allow Boston to maintain defensive intensity for 48 minutes, something championship teams desperately need. The Celtics front office knows this, and that is why the mere possibility of Golden State stepping in transforms this into a chess match of timing, leverage, and cap maneuvering. The curiosity is not whether Simmons can still contribute, because his showing in Los Angeles already answered that, but rather which franchise believes he can be the missing piece in their specific puzzle. For Golden State, he represents a unique insurance policy behind Curry, someone who can initiate offense and guard multiple positions. For New York, he represents another gamble in their endless pursuit of a true secondary star alongside Jalen Brunson. And for Boston, he represents a secret weapon, an unconventional move that could push an already loaded roster into even greater dominance. The twist lies in the perception of Simmons himself. While the average fan still associates him with the frustrations of Philadelphia, executives know that role definition can change everything. The Celtics, fresh off raising the banner in June of 2024, have the luxury of patience and flexibility. They do not need Simmons to be an all-star. They need him to be a connector who eases pressure on the stars during the grind of an 82-game season and the unforgiving playoff gauntlet. If Golden State manages to pry him away first, it would not simply be a signing. It would be a strategic theft from two rivals who understand his potential impact. This is where the suspense intensifies. Boston has built a reputation for waiting until the exact right moment to strike in the market, often catching other teams off guard. The question now is whether Brad Stevens and his team are prepared to accelerate their timeline in order to prevent Simmons from becoming the latest piece in Golden State's ongoing attempt to stretch their dynasty. If the Celtics move decisively, they can close the door on the Warriors and the Knicks before the idea even materializes into an offer. The offseason always reveals hidden battles, and this may be one of the most fascinating. Simmons may no longer carry the aura of a franchise cornerstone, but in the right environment, he can tilt the balance of a playoff series. That is why this pursuit is less about headlines and more about foresight. Whoever secures him is not just adding a name, they are reshaping the margin between contender and champion. For Celtics fans, the hope is that Boston acts quickly, because preventing Golden State from stealing Simmons could be as important as acquiring him. Jayson Tatum injury update will have Celtics fans buzzing. The news that Jayson Tatum tore his Achilles tendon during the playoffs shook the NBA to its core, but the shockwave in Boston hit harder than anywhere else. We are talking about a 27-year-old superstar, a Finals MVP, a player who has already etched his name in the history of a franchise built on banners. An Achilles injury has long been considered the cruelest sentence for a professional athlete, yet here we are, with Tatum standing at a crossroads that could redefine not only his own career, but the trajectory of the Celtics for the next decade. There is something uniquely unsettling about this moment. When Kevin Durant went down with the same injury back in the year 2019, the basketball world wondered if he would ever be the same. He returned to dominate, proving that modern medicine, combined with a relentless work ethic, can bend what once seemed like fate. But Tatum is not Durant, and the Celtics are not the Brooklyn Nets or the Phoenix Suns. This story is unfolding with different stakes and different timelines, and that is what makes it so fascinating. Boston's front office has already made seismic moves in anticipation of the future. By parting ways with Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday, and watching Al Horford and Luke Kornet depart in free agency, Brad Stevens has quietly shifted the chessboard. At first glance, it might look like the Celtics are preparing for a lost season, a year to recalibrate. Yet the undercurrent tells a different story. What if these moves are not about surrender, but about creating flexibility, opening the door for a reimagined roster that could be perfectly tailored to Tatum's return? Imagine this. Tatum spends a year rebuilding, every day closer to regaining not just his health, but a sharper, more dangerous version of himself. Science and precedent suggest it is possible. Durant came back even more lethal. Dominique Wilkins, decades earlier, also defied the odds and returned to greatness after the same injury. Could Tatum be next in line, joining the list of superstars who used an Achilles tear as a launching pad for a second chapter even more iconic than the first?
Rehab it's tedious, man. It's 6 days a week. It's starting to get a little bit better. I'm out the boot now. Better days ahead, but just trying to take it one day at a time. You got to be resilient. That first 6 weeks of this was probably the toughest 6 weeks of any point in my life. Just have to accept it and realize, it happened, and now I got to do everything in my power to, get back to who I was and, get back to playing.
Chris Forsberg of NBC Sports Boston hinted at this possibility, refusing to dismiss a Tatum comeback before the season's end. His words planted a seed of intrigue because they invite us to ask questions no one in Boston wants to say out loud yet. If the Celtics find themselves within striking distance of contention late in the year, would they dare bring Tatum back earlier than expected? Would they risk accelerating the timeline, banking on the idea that this team, even without its stars, could stay competitive long enough to make his return meaningful? That is where the real drama lies. The Celtics are not an ordinary franchise, and this is not an ordinary player. Every decision made around Tatum carries generational weight. The team could choose patience, shelving him until the 2026 campaign, ensuring he enters the next era fully healed. Or they could take a calculated risk, unleashing him the moment doctors clear him, gambling that his presence alone could transform a shaky playoff push into something historic. And there is another layer. The Celtics' identity has always thrived on resilience. From Bill Russell in the 60s to Paul Pierce in the 2000s, Boston legends have carried scars that only made their stories more compelling. Tatum's journey might be remembered in the same breath, not as a tragedy, but as a resurrection. Imagine the narrative if he returned earlier than expected, led the Celtics to an improbable run, and reclaimed the throne just months after everyone counted them out. It would be a chapter worthy of the rafters, a story that Celtics fans would tell for generations. So the question is not just about timelines or medical charts. It is about destiny. Will Jayson Tatum follow the path of those who let an Achilles tear define their decline, or will he carve out something entirely new, rewriting the script in green and white? That uncertainty, that space between despair and hope, is exactly what makes this moment so electrifying. When the Boston Celtics schedule for the 2025-2026 season was released on a quiet Thursday afternoon, most of the attention went to the marquee matchups. The Christmas Day clash, the games against the Lakers, the national TV showdowns. But hidden between those dates are battles that carry far more weight than the headlines suggest. Games that will test Boston in ways few are talking about yet. The kind of nights that could end up defining whether this team enters the postseason as the overwhelming favorite or faces a gauntlet of doubts. Fans who only circle the obvious games are missing the true story. Because when you peel back the surface, you find contests loaded with potential turning points. You find rivalries that are not yet rivalries, but could be. You find returning heroes who will walk back into TD Garden, not as opponents to boo, but as reminders of the foundation that helped raise Banner 18. You find young challengers desperate to announce their arrival. And you find traps that can shake a contender if taken lightly. Take November 26th against Detroit. Last year, the Pistons shocked the league by going from irrelevance to 44 wins. That was not an accident. Cade Cunningham evolved into a leader, Jaden Ivey embraced chaos in the best way, and Jalen Duren became a force inside. This time, they are not sneaking up on anyone. Beating them will require more than talent. It will require the discipline of a champion. And what better stage for Boston than their own garden to remind the league that banners are defended, not given. Or December 22nd, when Indiana comes to town. Both franchises lost their centerpiece to an Achilles tear in the same postseason, a cruel twist of fate that left pundits predicting decline. Yet the Celtics and Pacers still have cores built to fight. If you want to understand resilience, if you want to see which team refuses to let injuries define them, this game will speak louder than any interview or prediction ever could. Boston does not view this as a lost year, and this night could prove it. Then there is late January, a week that might be more emotional than any playoff series. Drew Holiday returns in a Blazers uniform, then Kristaps Porzingis in Atlanta colors. Both will be honored, both will bring back memories of 2024, and both will try to upset the very team they helped crown. These games are not about nostalgia. They are about how champions respond when old friends stand in the way. Every cheer during the tribute videos will be followed by silence once the ball goes up because Boston cannot afford sentiment in a season chasing history. March 16th against Phoenix will surprise many. The Suns are dismissed because Durant and Beal are gone, but Devin Booker is now free to command everything, and the roster has been reshaped with gritty defenders and ambitious rookies. That night could look very different from what analysts expect. It could be a test of whether Boston can adjust on the fly to a team that nobody has fully scouted yet. And sometimes, the games you least prepare for are the ones that punish you most. The final home game on April 12th against Orlando feels scripted for drama. Is fan appreciation night, but it may also decide playoff seeding. Orlando's rise is no illusion. If this turns into a preview of a first-round series, the Garden could echo like it did a year ago. And there is the lingering question, whispered by fans and opponents alike. Will number 0 be back by then? No one knows, but the possibility makes this date impossible to ignore. On the road, the traps multiply. December 4th at Washington looks like a throwaway, until you realize it comes one night before facing the Lakers. Boston cannot afford to stumble here, because showing up tired or distracted against their eternal rival is unacceptable. That makes this Wizards game, hidden in plain sight, one of the most strategic dates on the calendar. January 24th in Chicago closes a brutal stretch of 3 games in 4 nights. Fatigue will not be an excuse. The Bulls mix hungry youth with tested veterans, and the crowd at United Center can tilt momentum quickly. Winning here is about mental toughness as much as execution. And then comes February 25th in Denver, the highest altitude in the league, the end of a grueling trip through Golden State, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and finally Nikola Jokic's fortress. No Celtics fan needs to be told how difficult Denver is, but the circumstances make it nearly impossible, which is exactly why it matters. A victory in that building, under those conditions, would send a message no other game could. It would tell the league that Boston's endurance is not in question. The beauty of an 82-game schedule is that it hides treasures for those willing to look deeper. The Celtics know that banners are not secured in May and June. They are earned on cold nights in December, in emotional returns in January, in suffocating road trips in February. The underappreciated games are where champions sharpen their edge. And if Boston survives these battles with the focus of a team chasing something bigger than a season, the payoff will not be just another banner. It will be a statement that resilience, depth, and heart matter more than the spotlight.